Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will analyze the case of Ben Oxley. First I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Benjamin Robert Oxley was born on January 20, 1972 in West Covina, California. He went by the name Ben. When he was 10 years old, his family moved to Hawaii. In 1990, he graduated from high school. While in Louisiana in 1997, he met a woman named Dawn, and they became romantically involved. The couple married in 1999. While living in Arizona, they had a daughter named Alyssa. Ben and Dawn divorced in 2004 after Ben allegedly cheated on her. On September 17, 2006, Ben married a woman named Melissa. They lived together in Minden, Nevada, which is 49 miles south of Reno. They had a 1,400 square foot three-bedroom house at 2800 Wild Horse Lane. In addition to Ben and Melissa, two other people lived in the house, Ben's daughter Alyssa and Melissa's teenage brother Craig Nichols. Ben wasn't the only one who moved on romantically. In January 2008, his ex-wife Dawn, who also lived in Nevada, started dating a career criminal named James Matlian. James had a rough time growing up. By the age of 19, he had accumulated 3 felony convictions. In 2004, he was kicked out of a program for young offenders and sent to prison for grand larceny of a motorcycle. James lived in Dawn's house along with Dawn's 2 teenage children. Dawn had fought to gain custody of Alyssa, but Ben prevailed in court. In addition to losing custody, Dawn had to pay Ben $200 a month in child support. She was not happy with this arrangement. Not at all. Before moving to the timeline of the crime, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, Delete Me. Over the past few years, I have covered a lot of stalking cases which involve a perpetrator easily finding personal information online. When people try to get this information removed, they find out it's extremely time-consuming. Fortunately, there is a solution. Delete Me is a subscription service that can eliminate this type of personal information that is for sale online. They have the straightforward mission of removing customers' information from search results and upholding your right to manage and remove your personal information. The privacy experts at Delete Me work continually to remove information from hundreds of data brokers. This gets rid of your personal data like address, occupation, marital status, age, names of relatives, and so on. How does it work? Submit your information to Delete Me, and their experts remove it. After that, they check every 3 months to make sure any new data get removed as well. If you want your personal information removed from search results on the web, go to joindeleteme.com/Dr. Grande. Delete Me is offering 20% off their privacy plans to all my viewers with my code Dr. Grande. Again, that's joindeleteme.com/Dr. Grande, promo code Dr. Grande. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On February 21, 2008, at 3:20 a.m., Ben Oxley's wife Melissa called 911 from the house the couple shared on Wild Horse Lane. She told the operator, "I was sleeping and I heard a gun noise go off." The operator responded, "This gun noise, like a gunshot?" Melissa responded, "Yeah, I turned on the lights and saw my husband and it's really, really bad." The operator asked if he was awake. Melissa said no, he's dead. On a side note, sometimes the questions that 911 operators ask really don't make a lot of sense, like when the operator said, "This gun noise, like a gunshot." What other gun noise could the caller have been talking about? How did she expect the caller to answer? "No, it was not a gunshot. I heard someone cleaning a gun. Please hurry. The sound of the board brush is getting closer." Now moving back to the story, here's what the police found during the course of their investigation. 36-year-old Ben Oxley was dead in his bed. He had been killed by a single 12-gauge shotgun blast while he slept next to his wife, Melissa. The type of shotgun shell used was 8-shot, which is typically used for hunting birds. Ben's wife, Melissa, his daughter, Alyssa, and Melissa's brother, Craig, were unharmed. Melissa said that she woke up to a loud noise, but did not realize what happened. She walked out of the bedroom and saw that the front door was open. She then returned to the bedroom, turned on the lights, and tried to wake up Ben. This is when she realized he had been shot to death. Melissa never saw an intruder. Ben's daughter, Alyssa, was in her own bedroom during the murder. She saw a human figure in her doorway, but did not know if the person was a man or a woman. Melissa's brother, Craig, said that he slept through the entire incident. He was even still sleeping when the police showed up. The police found shotgun shells on Craig's dresser and 2 shotguns in the garage. They tested him for gunshot residue, but the test results were negative. There was no blood on Craig either. Melissa had both gunshot residue and blood on her body, but based on her story, this makes sense because she was in bed next to Ben when he was killed. The police had no idea who killed Ben. For a while, they believed that Melissa or Craig could have been responsible. Their suspicion regarding Melissa intensified when they learned that she started dating 2 months after the murder. Eventually, the police cleared both Melissa and Craig of any involvement. The investigation was growing cold as there were no other potential suspects. In August 2009, the police received a surprising phone call from Dawn Oxley. Again, she was Ben's ex-wife who was dating a career criminal named James Matlian. Dawn asked the police, quote, "If I confess to the murder of my ex-husband, will you put me in prison?" Unquote. The police interviewed Dawn. She and James had broken up and she was ready to implicate him in Ben's murder. Dawn believed that James killed Ben, but claimed she did not ask him to do it. Because Dawn was intoxicated at the time of this interview, the police did not take any action. In November 2009, Dawn was arrested for DUI. The police decided to interview her again because in jail, she did not have access to alcohol. This may have been their only chance to speak with her when she was not intoxicated. Here is the story that Dawn Oxley supplied during this interview. On February 20, 2008, the day before Ben was murdered, Dawn and James were drinking alcohol and talking in her house. 2 other people were present during this conversation: Dawn's 15-year-old son, Devin Mitchell, and Devin's friend, Eric. Initially, the discussion was about Dawn's ex-boyfriend, Rick, but then it turned to her ex-husband, Ben Oxley. Dawn said that she wanted Ben to fall off the face of the earth. James mentioned that he could kill Ben, but Dawn told him no. After this, Dawn fell asleep. She woke up to James saying, "It's done." Dawn believed that James had just come back from murdering Ben. Even though Dawn denied being involved in the murder, she agreed to lie for James. Their story was that they were home all night watching movies. They went to bed at 4 a.m. James then asked her to follow him to his mother's house so he could leave his pickup truck there, which she did. So Dawn was fine spending time in the truck with a killer, and she continued to live with this killer for many months after the murder. The police interviewed Dawn's son, Devin, who again had witnessed the conversation between Dawn and James. Devin said that Dawn stated that she wanted her ex-husband, Ben Oxley, dead. She was interested in getting custody of Alyssa and was tired of paying child support. James said that he could kill Ben right now. Dawn responded by saying something like, "I want you to go kill him," or "I want him dead now." James said that he would blow Ben away with a shotgun. The police interviewed James. He was easy to find because he was in jail for stealing 8 cartons of cigarettes from a convenience store. James repeatedly denied any involvement in Ben's murder. The police were in a difficult position. Dawn was saying that James killed Ben without her involvement. Devin was saying that Dawn asked James to kill Ben, and James was denying everything. In a controversial decision, prosecutors decided to offer Dawn immunity in exchange for testifying against James. On June 9, 2010, 23-year-old James Matlian was arrested and charged for Ben's murder. The case against James was weak. However, in a surprising move, he reached an agreement with prosecutors to plead guilty to murdering Ben. Here is the story that James supplied to investigators. He asked Dawn if she wanted him to kill Ben, and she said yes. She drew a diagram of Ben's house so James could find Ben and kill him in bed. James claimed that Dawn went with him to Ben's house, and then they realized they forgot to bring the diagram. He and Dawn entered the house through an unlocked sliding glass door. Dawn went to Alyssa's bedroom to get her, but James told her that she could not do that. This is consistent with Alyssa's story to the police, Again, she saw a figure in her doorway. James made his way to Ben's bedroom with the intent of killing both Ben and Ben's wife, Melissa. As he was pointing a double-barrel shotgun at Ben's head, James heard a noise that distracted him. When he jerked his body to look, he accidentally pulled the trigger. After murdering Ben, James and Dawn exited through the front door. On December 20, 2011, James pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Under his plea deal, the state would recommend a term of life in prison with the possibility of parole after 20 years, and a consecutive term ranging between 4 and 10 years. So if the judge had accepted the recommendation, James would have been facing 24 to 30 years in prison at a minimum. At the sentencing hearing on March 26, 2012, the judge rejected the recommendation and sentenced James to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Prior to this, Dawn Oxley ended up in prison as well, but not for anything related to Ben's murder. She was sentenced to 7.5 years for allowing a child to be present during the commission of a controlled substance violation. She had her 15-year-old daughter function as a driver during multiple drug transactions. Dawn Oxley was released from prison in March 2014. Now moving to my analysis. There isn't much doubt that James Matlian murdered Ben Oxley. After all, he confessed. The real question here is related to Dawn Oxley. She was offered immunity and denied any involvement in the murder, but many people believe she did play a part in the homicide. This brings me to the question, was Dawn Oxley guilty of murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that she was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Dawn had a motive to kill Ben Oxley. He had allegedly cheated on her when they were married. She was paying him child support, and he had custody of their daughter. In June 2007, 8 months before the murder, the police classified an incident between Dawn and Ben as mutual domestic battery. No charges were filed. However, the relationship between the couple seemed acrimonious. Dawn's son Devin told the police that Dawn instructed James to carry out the murder. In her initial interaction with the police after the murder, Dawn denied knowing anything about the homicide and provided a false alibi. She later admitted that she and James agreed to lie about being together on the night Ben was killed. Dawn appeared to have a substance use problem and had a history of deceptive behavior. She had been convicted of 2 counts of DUI, 2 counts of domestic battery, and 1 count of allowing a child to be present during the commission of a controlled substance violation. Now moving to the exculpatory factors. There is no physical evidence connecting Dawn to the murder, and no evidence that she was in Ben's house when he was killed. James was a career criminal who was clearly willing to commit serious offenses at any time for little or no reason. He seemed like a person who was destined to spend his life in prison. Maybe he heard Dawn complaining about Ben and decided to win favor from her by showing initiative. James claimed that Dawn drew a diagram of the house, but conveniently, this paper was lost. Dawn denied any involvement in Ben's death, saying, "I tried to avoid him. He's my ex-husband, and we didn't have a wonderful life together." When considering all the evidence in this case, do I believe that Dawn Oxley was guilty of murder? In my opinion, yes, she is guilty in reality, but I am not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. James was capable of killing Ben without Dawn's approval, assistance, or instruction. If James had never confessed, I would not have been convinced of his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt either. The real mystery of this case is his confession. It made no sense whatsoever. At the time he confessed, the evidence against James was not particularly compelling. It was essentially based on statements made by Dawn and her son Devin. Considering how Dawn had no credibility whatsoever, she would not have made a very strong witness. Through his confession, James ended up in prison for life. He should have known that the judge would never give him a chance of parole considering his other felony convictions. James should have taken his chances at trial. Fortunately, his impulsivity and poor critical thinking skills led to him confessing. Dawn may have escaped justice. There is no way to know whether she was guilty, but as far as James, there is certainty of his guilt, and he will die in prison. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. James Matlian was self-centered, erratic, unstable, insecure, impulsive, irresponsible, immature, aggressive, cold, callous, violent, had a sense of entitlement, and was exceedingly creepy. He became romantically involved with Dawn, who spent much of her time in a stupor from alcohol consumption. Her entire life revolved around being intoxicated. Dawn frequently complained about her ex-husband Ben, making it perfectly clear she wanted him to be dead. James offered to carry out the murder, and Dawn issued her approval. Due to being intoxicated, Dawn may not have remembered what she told James. Maybe Dawn really believed that she told James no when he offered to kill Ben, or perhaps Dawn was simply lying. I find it difficult to believe that Dawn was not involved in the murder. She may not have been there physically, but it seems likely she encouraged James to move forward. Dawn is the one who had the motive. James had actually managed to conceal the evidence of his involvement reasonably well, especially considering that he was not a sophisticated criminal, but he could not outrun his own impulsivity. Ironically, the same impulsivity that led to the murder led to him spending life in prison. Those are my thoughts on the case of Ben Oxley. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Just a reminder that I have over 300 pre-release videos on my Patreon account. The videos I put on Patreon are of the same quality as the videos I release to the public. When I put a video in pre-release status, it usually stays that way for a few months, if not a year. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video.